What if there was a switch in your mind that could instantly make you calmer, smarter, and unshakably in control, no matter what life throws at you? This isn't about IQ. It's not about talent. It's about emotional intelligence, the real secret weapon of powerful people. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to rewire your brain, manage your emotions, and read others like a map without losing your peace. So if you're tired of being controlled by stress, anger, or confusion, it's time to take your power back, starting from the inside. Chapter 1. Emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. You can't master your emotions until you understand them, and you can't understand them until you become brutally honest with yourself. Who are you when no one's watching? What thoughts loop in your mind when things get quiet? Most people run from these questions, but the emotionally intelligent face them head-on, because growth starts in that awareness. Your emotions are messengers, not enemies. When you feel anger, it's revealing a boundary. When you feel anxiety, it's pointing to something unresolved. Most people try to numb their emotions, but emotionally intelligent people listen. They use emotions as signals, not shackles. Self-awareness gives you power because it puts you in the position to observe, instead of be overwhelmed. Before you can lead others, you must lead yourself. That starts with noticing your patterns. How do you respond when you're under pressure? What habits show up when you're uncomfortable? If you never pause to reflect, you'll repeat those reactions on autopilot. Self-awareness interrupts the cycle. It turns reaction into reflection and reflection into growth. We're all wired with emotional habits. Some learned from family, some built from trauma. But if you never question them, they run your life. Emotional intelligence means looking at those programs and asking, is this still serving me? Most of the time it isn't. That's why awareness is step one. You can't change what you won't admit is there. You don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to observe. Start with your triggers. What makes you shut down? What makes you explode? What makes you feel insecure? These are clues. Self-awareness isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. The more clearly you see yourself, the more freedom you gain over how you show up. Silence is your greatest tool. It gives space for your true thoughts to rise. Most people distract themselves so they don't have to feel, but the emotionally intelligent sit with it. Not forever, just long enough to understand. Because once you understand what's going on inside, you no longer fear it. You manage it. You grow from it. Self-awareness also means owning your flaws without shame. Everyone has blind spots. Everyone has emotional triggers. The difference between a reactive person and a powerful one is this: one denies them, the other studies them. The moment you begin studying your emotions instead of hiding from them, you become unshakable. The truth is, you are not your emotions. You experience them, but they are not your identity. Self-awareness creates that space. It gives you just enough pause to say, this isn't who I am. This is just what I'm feeling right now. And in that moment, you reclaim your power to respond differently. So today, stop blaming and start observing. Look in the mirror without flinching. Ask hard questions. Journal your emotional patterns. Track your reactions. Because emotional intelligence isn't built in one big moment. It's built in hundreds of tiny ones where you choose to notice instead of ignore. Chapter 2. Understand your triggers before they control you. You cannot heal what you keep ignoring, and you cannot lead your emotions until you know what activates them. Triggers are like silent switches, small things that flip your entire mood, your tone, your behavior, but they aren't the enemy. They are signals. When something triggers you, it's showing you where your work still lives. Not in blame, in awareness. Most people react without knowing why. One comment, one rejection, one inconvenience, and suddenly they're spiraling. That's not weakness, that's unawareness. The moment you name your trigger, you begin to separate from it. It no longer owns you. You now have a moment of choice, and in that moment, growth becomes possible. Triggers often come from past pain. A voice that sounds like an old wound, a tone that reminds you of childhood, a situation that mirrors an old failure. The emotionally intelligent don't just react. They pause and ask, why did that hit me so hard? That question is the doorway to liberation. Understanding your triggers doesn't mean you avoid life. It means you navigate life with emotional strategy. You no longer walk around waiting to be offended, insulted, or abandoned. Instead, you walk around aware, grounded, prepared, and able to shift direction when needed. Some triggers are loud, yelling, disrespect, chaos, but others are subtle. Silence, being ignored, being misunderstood, feeling like you're not enough. The stronger your self-awareness becomes, the faster you spot the subtle ones. And that's where your power multiplies. Your triggers are not flaws, they're clues. Each one reveals a belief you still carry. Maybe you believe you're not lovable. Maybe you think you're invisible. Maybe you feel like you always have to prove yourself. These beliefs hide under your reactions, and it's your job to pull them into the light. You don't become powerful by avoiding emotion. You become powerful by owning it. When you feel triggered, breathe before you speak. Name the feeling. Notice the story your mind is telling. Then ask, is this reaction true, or is it a past fear speaking louder than reality? Most conflicts aren't about what's said. They're about what's felt. A trigger makes you feel unsafe. It reminds your nervous system of a past threat. But you're not in that past anymore. You're in control now. You get to decide how long the feeling lasts and what you do with it. Your ability to pause gives you power. That space between feeling and reaction is everything. It's where maturity is born. The more you train that space, the more you breathe, observe, and reframe, the more control you gain over every environment you're in. People who trigger you aren't always bad people. Sometimes they're mirrors, reflecting something in you that hasn't healed yet. Don't be so quick to cut everyone off. Instead, ask, what is this moment trying to teach me about myself? That's emotional intelligence in action. You'll never eliminate all triggers, and that's okay. The goal isn't to become emotionless. The goal is to become aware and intentional, to be able to say, I feel this, but I won't let it run me. That's the shift from being emotionally reactive to being emotionally respected. So take time to study your patterns. What consistently throws you off? What words instantly tighten your chest? Write them down, watch them, and most importantly, learn to respond to them from wisdom, not woundedness. That's how you grow beyond your past and become unshakable. Chapter 3. Master the pause. Respond, don't react. In every emotional situation, there's a split second, a pause, where you get to choose who you want to be. Most people never claim that moment. They react, automatically, instinctively, and often regretfully. But if you train yourself to pause, you break the loop. You stop becoming a prisoner of your emotions and start becoming the master of them. The pause is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the gap where clarity breathes. When you pause, you give yourself the power to slow down your heartbeat, calm your thoughts, and ask a better question. It's not about ignoring the emotion. It's about giving it space to move through you without taking control. Reacting is emotional autopilot. It's the result of unexamined wounds, unchecked stress, and a racing mind. Responding, however, is intentional. It's calm, it's measured, it still feels, but it leads with understanding, not urgency. And in that difference lies your strength. In conflict, your power is not in speaking first. It's in thinking clearly. The pause lets you hold back words that would damage trust. It lets you see what the other person is truly saying, not just how they're saying it. Most problems aren't solved by louder reactions. They're solved by clearer responses. When you pause, you don't suppress. You process. You breathe. You name the feeling. You check your assumptions. You become aware of the story your ego is trying to write. And in that awareness, you shift from reaction to reason, from chaos to control. Learning to pause isn't just for intense moments. It's for everyday life. Before you hit send, before you lash out, before you assume the worst. The pause creates a version of you that others can trust. And more importantly, a version of you that you can trust. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who stay grounded when others lose their center. They respond with intention because they've trained for the moment. The pause isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through daily emotional awareness. The pause gives you time to zoom out, to ask, what's really happening here? Is this about now or about something old? Is this about truth or about fear? In just one breath, one reflection, you move from being consumed to being clear. Reactions often come from the need to protect your ego. But when you pause, you let go of defensiveness. You don't need to win every moment. You just need to stay in your power. Responding isn't about silence. It's about strength that doesn't need to explode. Your reputation, your relationships, your progress, they're all protected by how well you manage the gap between trigger and response. One bad reaction can burn a bridge. One mindful response can build trust. The pause is the difference between regret and respect. In parenting, leadership, friendships, the pause is gold. It lets you be present instead of reactive. It teaches others how to feel safe around you. When people know you don't erupt, they start to open up. That's how influence begins, with calm energy. The pause helps you detach from urgency. Not every moment demands your emotional investment. Some situations only need your presence, not your opinion. And in those moments, silence speaks louder than words. Let the noise pass and respond when clarity returns. The world is fast, emotions move quickly, but growth moves in the slow spaces. That's why most people don't grow. They never pause long enough to reflect. If you can slow your mind, you can strengthen your character. Every time you pause, you reinforce the identity of someone who is in control of themselves. That identity builds confidence. It builds internal respect. And once you respect yourself emotionally, you stop tolerating chaos from others. The pause lets you challenge the voice in your head, the one that says they don't respect you. You have to say something now. You're not being heard. Instead of feeding those stories, the pause lets you ask, is this real or is this old pain looking for attention? When you feel heat rising, pause. When you feel disrespected, pause. When you feel attacked, pause. That moment of stillness is not weakness. It's emotional strength saying, I will not be manipulated by my own mood. The pause is emotional wealth. Most people are broke in that area. They spend their energy on reactions, arguments, and assumptions. But you invest in emotional patience. You protect your peace like it's currency. That's real power. It's hard at first. You'll want to speak fast. You'll want to react. But keep training the pause. Breathe, center, then choose your words, or choose silence. Either way, you'll feel the difference in how you carry yourself afterward. Responding doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're precise. Your voice carries more weight when it's not coming from impulse. Your energy feels more solid when it's not scattered by emotion. That's the kind of energy that commands respect, not noise. When you pause, you can pivot. You can turn a moment of conflict into a moment of understanding. You can redirect tension into growth. And most importantly, you can build a version of yourself that doesn't need external chaos to feel alive. So the next time the moment rises and the emotion surges and your voice wants to leap, don't. Pause. Let the old you wait. Let the new you choose. And in that stillness, you'll find the strength that makes you unforgettable. Because true emotional intelligence isn't about being emotionless. It's about choosing your power over your pattern. And the pause is where that choice begins. Chapter 4. Rewire your thoughts with conscious language. Words don't just describe your reality, they create it. Every sentence you speak is a reflection of how you think, and every thought you repeat becomes part of your identity. If you want to change your life, you must first change your language, because your words aren't just sound, they're signals, programming your mind every time you speak. The way you talk to yourself in silence is louder than any conversation you'll have with the world. When you constantly say things like, "I can't," "I always mess up," or "I'm not good enough," you're not venting. You're wiring those beliefs deeper. Conscious language begins by noticing the unconscious script you've been running on repeat. Your brain listens to everything you say, especially about yourself. If you constantly speak from limitation, your brain adjusts your behavior to match that belief. But if you start using language that affirms strength, growth, and clarity even before you feel it, your brain begins to rewire toward that new identity. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about leading yourself, saying, "I'm learning" instead of "I'm failing," saying, "I'll figure this out" instead of "I never get this right." These small shifts in speech train your brain to find solutions instead of shutting down in self-doubt. Conscious language turns setbacks into strategies. When you say, "This is teaching me something," instead of "This always happens to me," you move from victim to learner. You don't just change the sentence, you change the energy behind your thinking. Negative self-talk feels normal because it's familiar, not because it's true. Most of the harsh things you say about yourself aren't facts. They're patterns. They came from somewhere, got repeated, and then embedded in your self-image. Rewiring starts by questioning those inherited beliefs. Every time you speak with intention, you train your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind doesn't filter, it absorbs. So when you speak defeat, it stores defeat. When you speak strength, it stores that too. That's why your words are not cheap. They're powerful commands. The phrase "I am" is the most powerful phrase you'll ever use. What you put after those two words defines how you see yourself. Say, "I am tired all day," and you'll feel depleted. Say, "I am growing, I am healing," or "I am becoming," and you give your brain a new blueprint to build from. Conscious language means thinking before you speak, not to censor emotion, but to shape outcome. When you speak with awareness, you create an inner atmosphere that is focused, optimistic, and calm. And that atmosphere determines how you respond to life. Instead of saying, "I'm stuck," try, "I'm in a season of learning." Instead of "I can't do this," try, "I'm figuring it out." These aren't empty affirmations, they're shifts in identity. When your words rise, your actions follow. Watch how you speak in hard moments. That's when your default script reveals itself. Do you blame yourself? Do you insult your intelligence? Or do you give yourself grace? Self-talk is not fluff. It's the foundation of mental strength. You're not being fake when you speak positively. You're being intentional. You're choosing to build, not break. And that choice, repeated every day, becomes the difference between survival and transformation. Conscious language also affects how others treat you. When you speak clearly and respectfully, people learn to mirror that energy. You teach them how to communicate with you based on how you communicate with yourself. Your environment might not change overnight, but your inner world can shift in one sentence. That sentence might be, "I am done speaking against myself," or "I will not repeat the lies I was raised on," or "I choose language that builds, not breaks." Words are frequency. Speak love, and you carry love. Speak power, and you begin to stand taller. Every sentence either plants a seed or poisons your soil. Make your language a garden. Let it grow clarity, peace, and strength. Start correcting yourself out loud. Say, "Wait, I don't want to speak like that anymore." When you catch a negative phrase, replace it with a higher one. It doesn't matter if it feels awkward. That awkwardness is the sound of you changing. Don't wait to feel confident to speak confidently. Speak like someone who's growing into confidence. Speak from where you want to go, not from where fear wants to keep you. Your mind will rise to match your mouth. Language is one of the most underused tools of transformation. You don't need to read 100 books before you shift. Start with your next sentence, because the words you speak today will shape the person you wake up as tomorrow. You've been trained by repetition. Now you must retrain by intention. That means repeating new words, new beliefs, new self-concepts. Speak them when you wake up. Speak them when you feel small. Speak them until they feel normal. The most powerful shifts don't happen in public. They happen in the privacy of your own mind. When no one hears you but you, and you choose to speak life anyway, that's when rewiring becomes real. So every time you catch yourself speaking in doubt, pause, breathe, and speak differently, because the moment you change your language, you begin to rewrite your identity, and from that new identity, new results are born. Chapter 5. How to read people's emotions accurately. Reading people isn't about guessing, it's about paying attention. Most communication isn't spoken with words, but with energy, tone, posture, and silence. When you learn to observe these signals, you unlock deeper understanding, not just of others, but of yourself. Emotional intelligence means listening beyond what's being said. Someone might say, "I'm fine," but their eyes say otherwise. Their body pulls away. Their energy shifts. Accurate reading means not just hearing words, but feeling the space between them. To read people well, slow down. Presence is your superpower. When you're fully tuned in, not thinking of your next response, not scrolling, not distracted, you notice what others miss. You feel shifts. You sense tension. You catch what's not being said. The face is a map of emotion. Micro-expressions, those tiny flashes of emotion, can't be faked. Watch the eyebrows, the corners of the mouth, the blink rate. Emotions show up in milliseconds, and when you're aware, you learn to trust those small signs. People are telling you the truth with their body. Arms crossed can signal protection. Leaning in can show interest. Foot position can reveal discomfort. Reading these cues takes practice, not perfection. The more you observe without judgment, the clearer the message becomes. Listening is more powerful than talking. When you give someone your full attention, they start to reveal themselves naturally. They drop their guard. They say more than they intended. And in that raw space, you begin to understand them, not just as a person, but as a human with depth. Empathy sharpens perception. When you imagine what someone might be feeling, even if you can't relate, you begin to connect emotionally. You don't need to solve their pain, just feel with them. That feeling gives you insight, and insight gives you clarity. People rarely say what they really mean when they're in pain. Anger might mask sadness. Sarcasm might cover fear. Withdrawal might hide overwhelm. If you respond to the surface emotion, you miss the truth. But if you look deeper, with empathy, you uncover the root. Tone is truth. The words might be polite, but the delivery tells you everything. Is there warmth? Is there sharpness? Is the voice flat, strained, or tense? Learn to trust what you hear beneath the words. That's where emotion lives. Reading people accurately doesn't mean overthinking everything. It means being still enough to feel what's real. You'll know the difference. Authentic emotion has a vibration to it. When someone speaks with pain, hope, or fear, your nervous system picks it up before your brain does. Get curious instead of judgmental. Instead of, why are they acting like that? Try, what might they be going through? That small shift in mindset opens your heart. It helps you respond with compassion instead of criticism. Eye contact speaks volumes. Too much can signal aggression. Too little can reveal fear or avoidance. Look gently, listen deeply, and know that sometimes the quietest people are the ones carrying the loudest emotions inside. Don't just read people, feel them. How does their presence affect the room? What's their energy saying? Do they seem drained, agitated, hopeful, shut down? These subtle cues are always there. Most miss them, but if you slow down, you'll see clearly. Reading emotion isn't about being right. It's about being real. It's not about having perfect intuition. It's about caring enough to notice. That care builds trust, and trust opens the door for truth to be shared voluntarily. Sometimes the loudest person is the one hiding the most. They perform, they joke, they lead, but underneath it all is something unspoken. If you learn to read the pauses, the eyes, the fatigue behind the smile, you'll understand what most people miss. Children and animals read emotion instinctively. They don't need explanations. They feel energy. Adults forget that skill. We talk too much and listen too little. But emotional intelligence is remembering how to feel what's true, not just hear what's said. When someone says they're okay and you feel they're not, trust that instinct. Gently ask more. Give space. Let silence stretch. Most people will open up if they feel safe. Your presence can be the doorway to someone else's healing. Be aware of your own emotional state, too. Sometimes we misread others because we're projecting our own stress, fear, or insecurities onto them. Clear perception starts with a clear mind. The more stable you are, the more accurately you can read others. It's not manipulation, it's connection. You're not trying to control what someone feels. You're trying to understand. That understanding builds bridges where most people build walls, and those bridges lead to better communication, deeper respect, and stronger influence. You won't always get it right. You'll misread some people, but the effort to understand still builds emotional strength. It keeps you humble, present, and human, and that humility keeps you growing. So start watching more than you speak. Listen without rushing to reply. Feel without needing to fix. Because the ability to read people accurately isn't a trick, it's a skill. And the more you use it, the more powerful and peaceful your relationships become. Reading people takes time, not talent. The more you slow down and observe patterns, the clearer emotions become. You start to notice who avoids eye contact when nervous, who over-explains when guilty, who smiles to cover sadness. These are not guesses, they're patterns revealed through awareness. People often reveal their emotions through what they avoid. If someone quickly changes topics when something painful comes up, that's not coincidence. That's self-protection. Learn to listen to what people aren't saying, and you'll understand them better than they understand themselves. Learn to watch body tempo. When someone's movements become sharp or rigid, they're often stressed. When their body language opens, they feel safe. You don't need a psychology degree to feel this. Your nervous system already knows. You just need to trust it. When someone speaks about others, they often reveal how they feel about themselves. They always mess up might mean I feel inadequate. He doesn't care might mask I feel invisible. Look underneath complaints. Often you'll find unspoken personal pain. You don't have to agree with someone to understand them. Reading emotion is not about validating every behavior. It's about seeing the root cause. When you understand where pain comes from, you stop taking reactions personally. And that understanding gives you peace. Observe how someone talks about their past. Do they smile when they speak about painful memories? Do they get quiet, defensive? The way someone handles their own story reveals what they've processed and what they've avoided. Pay attention to changes in voice pitch and speed. When people are nervous, they often speak faster or with less control. A sudden pause can indicate emotional overwhelm. When you tune into these shifts, you hear the truth behind the words. People who constantly interrupt often feel unsafe when they're not in control. That's not rudeness, it's insecurity. When you read their emotion, you stop reacting with frustration and start responding with patience. That's emotional power in action. Even silence has a message, a pause, a look, a sigh. These are emotional cues. Someone might say nothing, but their energy screams exhaustion or sadness. When you stay present through the silence, you begin to understand what words fail to say. People mirror emotions. If you're calm, they soften. If you're open, they often let their guard down. This is why emotionally intelligent people often draw others in, not by force, but by resonance. Your presence becomes a safe place. When someone shares a little emotion, give them space, not solutions. Often, people just want to feel heard, not fixed. If you rush to advise, you shut down connection. If you listen deeply, they feel seen. That's how trust grows. Never assume emotion based on stereotypes. Not all tears mean sadness. Not all anger means aggression. Some people cry out of relief. Some lash out to protect their vulnerability. The key is to stay curious. Ask gently. Don't assume harshly. Sometimes people speak in metaphors because it's safer than admitting the truth. I feel like I'm drowning often means I'm overwhelmed. It feels heavy might mean I'm carrying a burden I can't name. Learn to listen to emotional language with soft attention. People often test your safety before showing real emotion. They'll say something small to see how you respond. If you dismiss it, they shut down. If you engage with compassion, they go deeper. Your reaction teaches them whether you're safe or not. Watch how someone treats quiet moments. Do they get uncomfortable? Do they rush to fill the space? That discomfort usually comes from unprocessed thoughts. If you can stay grounded in stillness, you'll notice their emotions start to surface. Some people smile through suffering. They've learned to cope with pain by masking it with politeness. But behind the smile, there's tension in their voice, hesitation in their tone. Emotionally intelligent people learn to notice the contrast and offer presence without pressure. Every behavior is an emotional signal. Consistent lateness might mean avoidance. Constant joking might hide insecurity. Overhelping could signal a need for approval. These are not flaws, they're flags. Emotional intelligence means reading them without judging them. The key to reading people is empathy without attachment. You don't absorb their emotions, you witness them. That witnessing allows you to respond from clarity instead of reacting from confusion. And it protects your energy while still offering connection. You don't have to label everything you feel in others. Sometimes just noticing is enough. When you observe without needing to define, you create space. And in that space, people naturally reveal more, because they feel safe to be unfiltered. Reading emotions accurately also helps you manage your own. You start to see how much people are carrying beneath the surface. That awareness creates compassion, and compassion softens your responses, even when people act out of their own unhealed places. Let go of the need to be right when reading people. You're not trying to analyze them, you're trying to understand them. And sometimes the best understanding comes from simply being with someone, not figuring them out. The better you get at reading others, the more gently you start treating the world, because now you see that behind every sharp tone, every cold glance, every distant stare, there's usually just a human trying to hold it together. And that truth changes everything. Chapter 6. Mirror Neurons, the brain's social decoder. Your brain is wired to understand people without words. Inside your mind, there's a system called mirror neurons, a network that lights up when you watch someone feel, move, or react. It's your built-in emotional decoder. That's why you can feel tension in a room without hearing a word. It's not magic, it's biology. Mirror neurons are why you wince when you see someone in pain, why you yawn when someone else yawns, why you feel joy when someone laughs. Your brain isn't just watching, it's experiencing the emotion with them. That's how deeply we're built for connection. The more emotionally aware you become, the more sensitive your mirror system gets. You start feeling what people don't say. You pick up on facial expressions, body shifts, tone changes, and your mind begins decoding them in real time. This is empathy at a neurological level. These neurons help you feel what others feel, but they can also confuse you if you're unaware. Sometimes you'll absorb someone else's stress and think it's your own. That's why emotional boundaries are crucial. You're wired to mirror, not to carry. When you sit near someone anxious, your body starts to tighten too. It's not imagination. It's your mirror neurons syncing. The energy around you matters more than you think. The people you spend time with don't just influence your behavior. They literally shift your brain chemistry. Leaders, healers, and emotionally intelligent people often have highly active mirror systems. That's why they can walk into a room and sense who's struggling, even if no one says a word. It's not a gift. It's attention sharpened through empathy and silence. Mirror neurons explain why emotions are contagious. A calm person can spread peace. An angry person can shift the tone of an entire space. That's why your energy isn't private. It echoes. What you feel inside radiates outward, affecting everyone around you. Be careful who you spend time around, not because they're bad people, but because your brain is wired to become like them. You don't just pick up habits, you mirror moods, thoughts, and emotions. Surrounding yourself with peace builds peace within. Children mirror everything. They copy emotions before they copy language. That's why your tone teaches more than your rules. If you want to raise emotionally strong kids, don't just tell them how to feel, show them how to feel. Calmness teaches calmness. Even silence can be mirrored. When someone stays still and grounded in chaos, it calms others. Mirror neurons respond not just to words, but to presence. This is why stillness is so powerful. It gives others something to reflect that isn't reactive. Social intelligence is rooted in mirror neuron awareness. If you want to influence people, don't start with what you say. Start with how you make them feel. Your emotions enter the room before your words ever do. People don't always remember what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel. This system is also why group energy is so powerful. When you're surrounded by people all focused, motivated, or calm, your brain begins to match. That's why environments are not neutral. They're emotional amplifiers. Mirror neurons help you build rapport. Ever notice how people who are close start speaking alike, moving alike, laughing at the same rhythm? That's the mirror system syncing. It's unconscious, but it builds trust faster than words ever could. You can use this system with intention. Want to make someone feel safe? Slow your tone, breathe deeply, relax your body. Their system will start to match yours without even realizing it. This is why your state matters more than your strategy. Pay attention to who drains you. Your brain is likely mirroring their anxiety or negativity. It doesn't mean they're bad, but it means your mind is echoing emotions that aren't helpful. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's neurological hygiene. Train your system by staying around grounded people. The more time you spend with calm, present minds, the more your own system learns to regulate. It's like upgrading your emotional software just by proximity. Social media triggers your mirror neurons too. Watching videos of anger, chaos, or sadness activates your own emotional systems. That's why curating what you consume isn't about comfort. It's about mental conditioning. When you become conscious of the mirror effect, you take responsibility for your energy. You stop blaming the room for how you feel and start asking, what am I feeding into this space? That shift builds emotional maturity. You can also use this awareness to de-escalate conflict. When someone is tense, your grounded tone and calm presence can lower the emotional temperature. Don't mirror chaos. Lead it into calm. The mirror system can't be shut off, but it can be trained. You train it by watching without absorbing, feeling without attaching, and most of all, choosing which energy is worth reflecting back and which isn't. If you want to change how people respond to you, start by changing what you bring into the room. Be the emotional tone you want to feel. Your system will lead theirs, not through force, but through reflection. This isn't about control, it's about connection. Mirror neurons exist to help us bond, not dominate. Use them with kindness, presence, and wisdom. Because when you lead with emotional intelligence, people will feel safer around you, even if they don't know why. Some of the strongest connections are formed in silence. When you sit with someone without saying a word, but they still feel understood, that's the power of mirrored presence. It's not about what you say, it's about how deeply you're present. Your brain connects, even when your mouth is still. Your mirror system doesn't just connect you to emotions, it links you to actions. Watch someone do something courageous, and you might feel inspired to act. Watch someone panic, and your heartbeat might rise. You're not just observing, you're neurologically involved. This is why leadership is felt, not just taught. A leader with calm energy creates calm followers. A leader who stays grounded under pressure helps others mirror that control. Emotional leadership starts with internal regulation, and it spreads without a single word. Your emotional state is contagious. The way you breathe, speak, move, others pick it up. If you're chaotic, others feel it. If you're centered, they relax. You don't need a microphone to influence a room. Your energy speaks louder than your voice ever will. Mirror neurons don't just reflect others. They can reinforce who you're becoming. That's why visualization is powerful. When you imagine yourself speaking calmly, succeeding under pressure, or showing kindness, your brain starts to wire itself as if it's already happening. When you surround yourself with growth-minded people, your system adapts. Their self-control teaches your brain new pathways. You begin to feel what excellence looks like, and eventually you start to mirror it, without even realizing that it's becoming your new normal. Notice how quickly tension spreads in a toxic environment. One sarcastic remark, one eye roll, one raised voice, and the whole group shifts. That's not coincidence. That's the mirror system firing. In toxic spaces, even calm people start to feel anxious. This is why it's important to protect your peace like it's your job. Your emotional system is always listening, always syncing, always adjusting. You don't need to be perfect, but you need to be intentional about what you allow around your nervous system. Kindness is mirrored, too. Smile genuinely at someone, and their brain lights up in response. Offer patience, and watch someone begin to soften. These aren't manipulations, they're emotional ripple effects. You're showing the nervous system what peace looks like. Your mirror neurons give you social intuition. You might not know why, but you can sense when someone's lying, when someone's distant, or when someone feels safe. That gut feeling isn't guesswork. It's your brain detecting emotional inconsistencies in the room. When you choose to be still in a loud moment, others notice. Your stillness becomes a mirror for self-control. It makes people wonder how you stay grounded, and that wonder turns into respect. Emotional restraint is powerful because it's so rare. Be mindful of emotional mimicry. If someone constantly complains, you'll feel more negative too. If someone's always stressed, your system might mirror that tension. This is why setting energetic boundaries isn't rude. It's essential for your own stability. Healing happens faster in safe environments. When your brain mirrors calm, you enter repair mode. Your nervous system starts to relax. Your thoughts become clearer. You feel more human again. This is the silent therapy of presence. Some people walk into the room and instantly drain energy. Others walk in and raise the whole vibration. Be the second type. Speak with your presence. Make your body language match your peace. People will mirror you, not because you force them, but because it feels better. In relationships, misalignment often begins with emotional mismatch. One person mirrors fear, the other mirrors shutdown. The more aware you are of this cycle, the more you can shift it, not by fixing the other, but by changing what you reflect back. Practice emotional hygiene by pausing before you respond. Ask yourself, is this mine, or am I mirroring someone else's energy? That 1 second of awareness can save you from days of stress that never belonged to you in the first place. Even in digital spaces, mirror neurons respond. Watching someone cry on screen, your eyes well up. Seeing joy in a video makes you smile. It's not just content, it's connection. Be careful what you consume. You're programming your emotional mirror every day. If you've ever felt emotionally exhausted after being around someone, that's your mirror system on overdrive. You weren't just present, you were absorbing. Learn to return to your own baseline by grounding yourself after those moments. Breathe. Reset. Don't underestimate your silent power. The person who observes more than they speak often sees the most. Their mirror neurons aren't racing to react. They're tuned in to feel. That calm awareness is what makes them wise, respected, and deeply magnetic. In conflict, whoever controls their emotional mirror first wins, not in domination, but in dignity. If you can hold your center while others spiral, your mirror becomes the stabilizer. And that balance can de-escalate chaos faster than any argument. To build emotional leadership, start by managing what you reflect. Don't mirror fear when you feel it. Don't echo negativity when it shows up. Be the mirror of what you wish to receive. Your emotional posture will start shaping the world around you. At the end of the day, your mirror neurons are not just science, they're service. They remind you that we're built to feel each other, to understand each other, to grow together. Use that gift with care, use it with strength, and the reflection you create will change lives. Chapter 7. Train your mind to stay calm in chaos. Calm is not something you find, it's something you build. In a world that thrives on noise, urgency, and fear, staying calm is a form of rebellion. When everything around you is loud, the ability to stay quiet inside becomes your superpower. It's not easy, but it's possible, and it starts with training. Your brain will mirror whatever you feed it most. If you constantly feed it stress, it will normalize panic. But if you begin to introduce stillness through breath, reflection, or silence, it will start learning that calm is an option. The more you return to it, the more natural it becomes. Chaos wants your reaction. It wants you to panic, to rush, to yell, to give up your power without even realizing it. But calm is the pause that protects you. It gives you time to think, to breathe, to choose instead of explode. That's how calm becomes control. Staying calm doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means your emotions don't run the show. It means you can feel anger without becoming destructive. You can feel fear without shutting down. Calm doesn't deny emotion. It directs it with clarity. When your mind is chaotic, everything feels like an emergency. Small problems feel massive. Every delay feels personal. Every opinion feels like an attack. But when your mind is calm, you begin to see things as they are, not as your panic paints them. Training your mind starts with awareness. Notice when your thoughts speed up. Catch the moment your breath shortens. These are the signs that chaos is knocking, and your response in that moment becomes your practice. Breathe, reset, begin again. You don't wait until you're in a storm to learn how to swim. The same goes for your mind. You must train it before chaos hits. That means practicing calm in small moments, during traffic, in arguments, when plans shift. Every choice to stay grounded makes you stronger. Calm is a discipline, and like all disciplines, it requires consistency. Start your mornings with peace. End your nights in reflection. In between, take pauses. Close your eyes. Stretch your breath. You're not just calming your mind, you're reprogramming it. Some people confuse being calm with being weak, but it takes far more strength to be calm than to explode. Anyone can lose their temper, but to hold your center when your world is shaking. That's power. That's presence. That's true control. In chaos, the loudest person often has the least control. The calmest person holds the most influence. Because people trust calm, they lean into it. They follow it. If you want to lead, not just in business but in life, train your calm like a muscle. Your nervous system follows your breath. When you slow it down, your mind slows too. That's not just relaxation, that's leadership over your own biology. The breath is always with you. Use it deeply, often. Calm is just one inhale away. Even your thoughts become quieter when your body is at peace. Movement helps. Walk slowly. Sit still. Feel your feet on the ground. Anchor your attention to the present moment. In that stillness, you reclaim the space that chaos tried to steal. Train your inner voice. When things go wrong, what do you say to yourself? If it's panic, you'll freeze. If it's patience, you'll think. Replace "this is a disaster" with "I can figure this out." That one sentence changes your entire nervous system. You are not your environment, you are your response. Chaos can happen around you, but peace can still live within you. You don't have to match the energy of the room, you can set the energy. And it begins by holding your own. Mental training is like emotional weightlifting. Every time you stay calm in pressure, you strengthen your emotional core. At first it feels heavy, but with practice your recovery gets faster, your awareness gets sharper, and your control becomes automatic. Create mental anchors, a phrase, a breath, a visual cue, something that brings you back when chaos pulls you away. It could be as simple as "I'm okay" or "breathe slow." These anchors ground you in moments that would otherwise drown you. People will test your calm. Life will test your center, but those tests are your training ground. Don't resent them. Use them. Every challenge is a classroom. Every interruption is a mirror. Respond with wisdom, not impulse. That's how you win silently. Chaos is louder than calm, but not stronger. The storm might rage outside, but it doesn't have to enter you. Build a mental space that's untouchable. That space becomes your power, your peace, and your place of decision. Don't train your calm only for your own sake. Do it for those you love. Your peace becomes their peace. Your regulation teaches others how to handle emotion. Be the person your younger self needed, grounded, clear, and steady in the middle of everything. Let go of needing to control everything. Control is a trap. Calm comes not from controlling outcomes, but from trusting your ability to respond well, no matter what happens. That trust is built one moment at a time, one breath at a time. Your peace is not weak, it is earned. You've battled storms, survived chaos, and kept going when your mind wanted to quit. That calm you carry, it's sacred. Don't let the noise of the world steal what you fought so hard to build. The more chaos you've survived, the more peace you learn to protect. There's wisdom in staying calm, not because you're passive, but because you know what it costs to let emotion run wild. You've lived through enough storms to know calm is earned, not inherited. Don't wait for life to calm down. Learn to stay calm within it. There will always be traffic, setbacks, misunderstandings, and surprises. That's life. But your mind doesn't have to spiral with it. Calm isn't the absence of conflict. It's the control you keep in the middle of it. Resilience is built in small moments, when you don't snap back, when you breathe before you speak, when you hold your tongue, not out of fear, but out of strength. That's how your calm sharpens, moment by moment, reaction by reaction. Your calm protects your future. One panicked decision can derail years of progress, but one calm choice, one pause in the middle of pressure can save relationships, preserve reputations, and keep your goals on track. Calmness is a form of long-term thinking. You don't have to feel calm to act calmly. Sometimes the most powerful move is to steady your voice, even when your heart races. It's in that gap between fear and action that true growth lives. Calm is the bridge between emotion and wisdom. In high-pressure moments, speak slower, move slower, think slower. Chaos wants to speed you up so you lose clarity, but calm gives you your timing back. When you control your pace, you regain your power. Speed isn't strength, precision is. Learn to recognize emotional triggers before they control you. The more aware you are of what sets you off, the better you can prepare. Calm is easier to hold when you know where chaos tries to sneak in. Awareness creates a map. Practice helps you follow it. You're not failing because you feel anxious. You're training. Every deep breath you take, every reaction you soften, is a step closer to mastery. Calm isn't built in comfort, it's built in chaos. And every time you practice, you build more muscle. Anchor your day with rituals that remind your mind who's in charge. Morning silence, evening reflection, a simple walk in nature. These small practices reinforce your calm, not just when things are good, but especially when they're not. Most people try to control others to feel better, but emotional power doesn't come from changing others. It comes from mastering yourself. When you stay calm in front of someone who wants to provoke you, you've already won. Sometimes your silence will be your greatest strength. You don't have to explain your calm to people who are addicted to chaos. Let your energy speak for itself. Let your peace be the loudest thing in the room. Letting go is part of staying calm. You can't hold everything. You can't fix everything. Release what you can't control. Focus on what's in your hands, your words, your breath, your attitude. That's where your peace lives. That's where calm grows. Your environment affects your calm more than you realize. Loud people, anxious energy, digital noise, all of it shapes your nervous system. Protect your space. Guard your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Calm minds make better decisions. In crisis, it's not the smartest person who leads, it's the calmest. When others react emotionally, your stillness becomes magnetic. People will follow your lead not because you demand it, but because they trust it. Patience fuels calm. When you stop needing instant results, you stop chasing every fire. You start choosing what matters. You start conserving energy, and that conservation gives you more power, more presence, more strength. Train your recovery time. You may lose your calm. That's human. But how fast do you come back? That's where growth happens. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for a faster return to peace. The faster you return, the stronger you become. When emotions rise, shrink your world. Don't solve everything. Don't talk to everyone. Focus on your breath, your thoughts, your body. Create a small space of control. In that space, calm begins to return. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the clarity to ask the right questions. Calm minds ask better questions, and better questions lead to better choices. Let your questions be shaped by reflection, not reaction. Let calm become your identity, not something you do once in a while, but who you are. Someone who holds their ground, someone who thinks clearly, someone who doesn't chase chaos. That identity becomes your armor. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more calm leaders, people who don't break under pressure, people who respond with strength, people who turn down the heat when the room gets tense. Be that person. Be the calm in the storm. The more calm you carry, the more trust you earn. People feel safer around those who don't explode. Your calm becomes a refuge, not just for yourself, but for those who depend on your energy. That kind of peace has power. Quiet power. Chapter 8. The power of empathy in influence. Influence isn't about talking louder, it's about listening deeper. True influence starts when people feel seen, heard, and understood. Empathy is the bridge. It connects hearts before it changes minds. You don't need a loud voice to be powerful. You need a soft presence that speaks directly to what people feel. People remember how you made them feel more than what you told them. If your presence calms them, encourages them, lifts them, you've already won their attention. Empathy is magnetic. It doesn't push, it pulls. It draws people in because it feels safe. Influence built on empathy lasts longer than influence built on fear. Fear may get a reaction, but empathy gets loyalty. When people feel emotionally supported, they naturally trust your leadership. And trust is the foundation of true influence. You can't influence someone you don't understand. That's why empathy comes first. Before you speak, listen. Before you advise, observe. When you take the time to feel what others are feeling, your words carry more weight because they come from connection. Empathy isn't weakness. It's emotional intelligence in action. It means you can sit with someone's pain without needing to fix it. You can validate someone's fear without feeding it. That level of emotional control earns respect without demanding it. You don't need to agree with someone to understand them. Empathy is not about agreement. It's about presence. It's saying, I hear you, I see you, and I care enough to try and feel what you feel. That alone can shift the dynamic of any interaction. When people feel understood, they open up, they lower their guard, they become more honest, more vulnerable, more willing to hear you. Influence is not about getting people to submit, it's about helping them feel safe enough to grow. The most powerful communicators don't just talk, they reflect. They repeat what someone said with clarity. They mirror emotion with care. This reflection builds connection, and connection builds influence. Empathy becomes the language of leadership. In a world full of performance, empathy is authenticity. It says, I don't need to impress you. I just want to understand you. And that sincerity creates something most people crave. Emotional safety. That safety opens doors that pressure never could. Empathy allows you to speak to what's beneath the surface. It lets you hear the fear under the anger, the sadness behind the silence, the insecurity inside the ego. And when you speak to that, not just the symptom, you become someone worth listening to. Leaders who influence through empathy create loyal followers, not out of fear, but from emotional alignment. When your team knows you care, they give more, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the power of feeling emotionally supported. Empathy sharpens your perspective. It helps you see situations from angles you would have missed. You begin to ask better questions, offer better solutions, and make better decisions, all because you took the time to feel first, not fix first. People may not remember your logic, but they will remember your kindness. They will remember how you looked them in the eyes when they were unsure. They will remember how you paused when they needed space. Those small moments carry great weight. Empathy helps you read the room. It's what tells you when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to push and when to pause. That awareness, that sensitivity, makes your communication not just effective, but impactful. The most persuasive voices are not the ones with the best arguments. They're the ones that make people feel understood. Because once someone feels understood, their resistance lowers, their mind opens, their heart listens, and your influence deepens. Empathy is not an event. It's a lifestyle. It means walking through the world with open eyes and a soft heart. It means pausing your ego long enough to say, what are they really feeling right now? That pause can change the entire direction of your conversation. In difficult conversations, empathy is your shield. It protects you from reacting defensively. It helps you stay grounded when others spiral. You respond with insight, not emotion. You protect your peace. And in doing so, you protect your influence. When you speak with empathy, your words don't just land, they linger. They echo in the heart long after the conversation ends. That's because empathy touches something logic can't. The human need to feel seen. You don't need to have the right answer to influence someone. Sometimes the most influential thing you can say is, I understand, or that must be hard. These simple phrases carry emotional weight that no fact sheet ever could. Empathy is a silent teacher. When people experience it from you, they begin to offer it to others. You don't just influence the person in front of you. You influence everyone they interact with after. Your calm becomes contagious. Your care becomes culture. Train your empathy like a skill. Practice listening without fixing. Practice observing without interrupting. Practice putting yourself in someone else's emotional space before offering your advice. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes. At the highest level of influence, it's not about control, it's about connection. And connection can only happen through empathy. When people feel you understand them, you don't need to force anything. They'll lean in, they'll trust, and they'll grow. The moment someone feels understood, their walls begin to fall. Empathy isn't just kind, it's strategic. It's the fastest path to trust, and trust is the foundation of all influence. You don't have to convince people who feel connected. They want to follow your voice. People often wear masks to protect their wounds. Empathy sees past the performance. It hears the fear behind the confidence. It notices the exhaustion behind the smile. And instead of judging, it holds space. That space is where transformation begins. You don't build influence by speaking over pain. You build it by speaking into it. Empathy doesn't run from discomfort. It moves closer with care. It says, you don't have to hide that here. And that permission frees people to be honest, even with themselves. Empathy doesn't demand a solution. It offers presence. When someone is hurting, they don't always need answers. They need to know they're not alone. And when your presence becomes a comfort, your voice becomes a guide. True influence isn't about who's the smartest. It's about who connects the deepest. You might have all the answers, but if your tone lacks care, your message won't land. People don't follow clarity alone. They follow compassion wrapped in clarity. Empathy requires stillness. You can't truly understand someone when your mind is racing, your ego is loud, or your agenda is pressing. Presence is the price of real understanding. Slow down. Tune in. Let the noise fall away so the truth can rise. People won't always express what they feel, but their body language, tone, and energy will speak volumes. Empathy listens with more than ears. It listens with intuition. And the better you get at reading unspoken emotion, the more influence you hold. Sometimes influence looks like silence, like holding space for someone's tears, like letting them finish their sentence, like saying, take your time. That patience tells people, you matter here, and that sense of mattering is what creates loyalty. Empathy is how you speak to people's reality. Logic says what should be. Empathy says, I know how it really feels. When you reflect someone's lived experience back to them, they feel seen. And when people feel seen, they're more open to what's next. In high-stress environments, empathy is a stabilizer. When tensions rise, the empathetic voice grounds the room. It doesn't escalate, it de-escalates. That calm spreads, that care disarms. And before long, influence is flowing where conflict once ruled. You don't have to feel what someone feels to offer empathy. You just have to care enough to ask, what's this like for you? That question alone breaks down barriers. Because in a world that moves fast and talks loud, genuine curiosity is rare and deeply powerful. Empathy reminds us we're human first, before the roles, before the goals, before the titles. And when you speak to the human in someone, not just the employee, partner, or peer, you unlock a connection that lasts beyond performance. You can lead without dominating. You can inspire without shouting. That's what empathy teaches. Influence doesn't have to be loud to be strong. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one everyone leans toward, because it carries emotional truth. Don't underestimate the value of emotional validation. Saying, "that makes sense," or "that would hurt anyone," isn't just polite. It's healing. It helps people feel sane in their struggle, and that emotional grounding builds influence faster than persuasion ever will. In conflict, empathy builds bridges. Instead of "you're wrong," it says, "I understand how you see it." That doesn't mean you agree, it means you value their lens. And when people feel valued, they soften. That softening makes solutions possible. The more you practice empathy, the more intuitive it becomes. You start noticing patterns. The way people protect themselves, the words they avoid, the tone they use when they're unsure. This insight helps you speak more directly to what matters. Empathy gives your words weight. When someone knows you get it, even hard truths land more gently. You can challenge someone without shaming them. You can correct without crushing, because empathy makes truth easier to receive. Influence without empathy becomes manipulation, but influence with empathy becomes mentorship. You're not pulling people, you're guiding them. You're not using their weakness, you're helping them find strength. That's the difference that defines integrity. Empathy works in silence too. A nod, a pause, a moment of eye contact. Sometimes no words are needed, just presence, just being there. That stillness can say more than any motivational speech. It says, "I'm with you, I see you, I care." Empathy makes feedback easier to give and receive, because it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it. When someone feels your heart behind your words, they're more likely to accept correction, because it doesn't feel like rejection. Your empathy sets the emotional tone for your influence. People may forget your strategy, your goals, your brilliance, but they'll never forget the leader, the friend, the voice that made them feel understood. That is influence that lasts. The final truth is this: empathy doesn't weaken your message, it strengthens it. Because when care is your foundation, your words don't just reach the mind, they reach the soul. And once you've touched the soul, you never have to force influence again. Chapter 9. Silence is emotional intelligence at work. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the presence of control. In moments of tension, the person who stays silent holds more strength than the one who rushes to speak. Silence is a pause that allows wisdom to enter. It's the breath before the decision, the stillness before the breakthrough. Emotionally intelligent people don't always speak first. They listen first. They read the room. They feel the energy. They observe before responding. That silence isn't hesitation. It's calculation. It's restraint. It's a quiet message that says, "I don't need to prove anything right now." In chaos, silence creates space. Space for thinking, space for listening, space for truth to rise without pressure. While everyone else reacts, the person who chooses silence is often the one who sees clearly. They don't get lost in noise. They wait until clarity shows up. Not every opinion needs to be said. Not every thought needs a voice. Sometimes emotional maturity is knowing when your silence is more valuable than your input. Holding your tongue can be harder than making your point, but far more powerful. Silence doesn't mean you agree. It means you're thinking. It means you're weighing the cost of speaking versus the benefit of peace. Emotional intelligence chooses peace when the battle isn't worth the outcome. That's not surrender. That's wisdom. There's a difference between being quiet and being silenced. Emotionally intelligent silence is intentional. It's active. It's rooted in awareness. It doesn't come from fear. It comes from strength. It's the kind of quiet that holds weight. When someone is emotional, silence becomes your superpower. You don't interrupt. You don't fix. You just sit, grounded, present, and still. In that silence, the other person finds room to breathe, to process, and to trust. That trust is influence in its rawest form. Sometimes silence is how you protect your peace. People will try to pull you into arguments, into chaos, into ego battles. And the moment you respond, you've entered their frame. But silence says, I choose my peace over your drama. In conflict, silence gives you leverage. The person who doesn't rush to defend themselves often wins the emotional high ground. Because silence under pressure says, I know who I am. It speaks louder than shouting ever could. Silence is a boundary. It's how you say, I'm not available for this energy, without saying a word. It's how you exit conversations that go nowhere. It's how you conserve your emotional fuel. It's the mature alternative to arguments that solve nothing. Emotional intelligence understands timing. Just because you have something to say doesn't mean now is the moment to say it. Silence teaches patience, and patience often reveals more than pressure ever could. When you're silent, you notice more. You hear what's not being said. You observe body language. You sense emotional shifts. Most people miss these because they're too focused on talking. But silence sharpens your awareness like nothing else. Silence also builds presence. You don't need to dominate a conversation to own a room. Quiet confidence commands attention without demanding it. People lean in when they sense you're grounded. Your silence becomes gravity, pulling respect instead of chasing it. Sometimes the most powerful move in a meeting, in a negotiation, or in a relationship is to pause, to let your silence do the talking. In that space, people start to reveal themselves, their insecurities, their assumptions, their fears. You just have to stay still long enough to notice. You don't have to fill every silence with words. Let pauses stretch. Let moments breathe. Silence doesn't have to be awkward. It can be intentional. It can say, I value this moment enough not to rush it. In leadership, silence is often misunderstood. People think great leaders must always speak, always motivate, always explain. But sometimes the best thing a leader can do is listen deeply, quietly, and allow others to rise in the space that silence provides. In relationships, silence teaches self-control. When emotions rise, you pause. When you feel triggered, you breathe. That moment of silence gives you time to choose a better response. It protects the connection you care about. Social media, the workplace, the world, all push you to speak faster, louder, more often. But silence rebels against that. It says, I'll speak when I'm ready, not when I'm rushed. That resistance is where your emotional intelligence grows strong. Silence is also how you receive. You can't hear wisdom if you're always talking. You can't feel peace if you're always reacting. Silence is the channel where intuition speaks, where God speaks, where your own heart finally gets a chance to be heard. Let silence become your reset button. When your mind races, when your emotions surge, when your world feels out of control, go quiet. Not because you're escaping, but because you're regrouping, regaining your clarity, recharging your power. In emotionally intelligent circles, silence is respected. People don't rush you. They honor your stillness. They know that silence is not emptiness. It's preparation. It's depth. It's a sign that what you say next will matter more because you chose not to waste your words. So learn to value silence. Not as weakness, but as wisdom. Not as absence, but as presence. Because the more you master silence, the more influence you hold. And in a world that can't stop talking, your calm will speak louder than anyone else's noise. Silence teaches you what urgency hides. In a noisy world, silence is a mirror. It shows you what you're really feeling. When you stop talking, when you stop reacting, your real thoughts rise to the surface. And only then can you deal with them with clarity. Sometimes silence is where truth hides. People often speak to distract themselves from their discomfort. But if you sit quietly, if you don't rush to cover it with noise, the real emotion reveals itself. That's how growth begins. By listening to what discomfort is trying to say. A calm presence in a loud environment is rare and unforgettable. Most people are swept away by noise. But the one who remains silent, measured, and grounded stands out without trying. That quiet strength is what people respect and remember. You don't have to prove yourself when you know yourself. That's what silence represents. Inner security. Emotionally intelligent people don't compete for attention because they've made peace with who they are. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's assurance. When people are uncomfortable with silence, they'll rush to fill it. That's where their insecurity leaks out. Emotionally intelligent people are comfortable sitting in it. They understand that not every second needs to be filled. Meaning often lives in the pause. In silence, you begin to notice the noise in your own head. Thoughts you ignored, feelings you buried, stories you've been repeating. But instead of running from them, emotionally intelligent people welcome the stillness. Because in silence, healing starts. Silence trains patience. When you don't interrupt a moment, when you let someone finish, let a situation unfold, let a thought breathe, you build a deeper type of presence. That presence earns trust, because it shows you're not driven by impulse but by purpose. Sometimes silence is your answer. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every rumor needs a defense. Letting silence speak for you shows you trust time more than your temper, and time always tells the truth, more clearly than any argument. The most emotionally intelligent people speak when their words will improve the moment, and stay silent when they won't. They understand that timing matters, energy matters, and speaking just to fill space usually dilutes both. Silence also allows others to speak. When you pause, when you resist the urge to interrupt, you open space for others to reveal more. People often say the most important things when there's a gap. Let the gap exist. Let the truth rise in it. The more you practice intentional silence, the more your energy becomes calming to others. People will seek you out, not for your answers, but for your atmosphere. Because in your presence, they feel centered. That's influence you don't have to advertise. Silence is the stage for your intuition. You can't hear your gut if your mind is always racing. But in quiet, real quiet, you start to feel what's right. You begin to know without knowing why. That's wisdom beyond logic, and it's only found in stillness. Every emotionally intelligent person knows silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something deeper is happening. Alignment, clarity, observation, recalibration. Silence is the soil where insight grows. In the presence of conflict, silence can de-escalate more than defense. When someone expects a fight and you give them calm, they don't know what to do with it. That pause disarms their ego. And sometimes that pause is the beginning of peace. If you can master silence, you can master any room. Not because you dominate, but because you don't need to. You let your awareness lead. You let your calm radiate. And people respect you not because you speak loud, but because you think deep. Silence protects your energy. Words are energy. Reactions are energy. And when you speak less, you can serve more. You get to choose where your power flows. That choice makes you emotionally wealthy, not depleted by every interaction. Most people speak from reaction. Emotionally intelligent people speak from reflection. Silence creates the gap between trigger and response. In that gap, you find control. In that control, you find strength. And in that strength, you build better outcomes. When you stay silent in the face of chaos, you become an anchor. Not just for yourself, but for others. People don't just listen to what you say. They watch how you carry yourself. Let your silence show that you're rooted, even when everything else shakes. If silence makes you uncomfortable, that's where your emotional training begins. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Get curious about it. Because the more peace you can find in silence, the more peace you'll carry into every noisy situation. Silence also helps you hear others better. When you stop preparing your reply and just listen, people reveal their true selves. And when they feel heard, truly heard, they become more open, more trusting, and more influenced by your presence. Don't confuse silence with avoidance. Emotionally intelligent silence is active. It's watching, feeling, reading the moment. It's not passive. It's prepared. You're not withdrawing. You're choosing your entry point with precision and power. And finally, silence teaches you this. You don't need to say everything you think, and you don't need to fix every problem you feel. Sometimes your presence is enough. Sometimes your stillness speaks the loudest truth in the room. Honor it, practice it, master it. Chapter 10. Create space between emotion and action. There's a moment, right after the emotion rises, where everything is decided. Not by the feeling, but by what you do next. That space is small, but it's powerful. And when you learn to use that space, you stop reacting blindly and start responding wisely. Most people don't know the space exists. They feel something and act on it immediately. Anger leads to shouting, fear leads to retreat, shame leads to silence. But emotionally intelligent people pause. They create space. And in that space they gain control. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of them. Feelings are messengers, not masters. When you take a breath before reacting, you reclaim the power to choose. That 1-second delay can save a relationship, protect your peace, or change the direction of your day. Emotions are fast, but wisdom is patient. Creating space doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you give your feelings room to settle before turning them into action. That's not suppression. That's regulation. That's maturity. A triggered response is usually an untrained one, but you can train your nervous system. You can teach your mind to recognize when you're about to react and to hold back. Not forever, just long enough to ask, is this action aligned with my values? The space between emotion and action is where emotional intelligence lives. It's where your inner voice speaks louder than the outer noise. It's where you move with intention, not reaction. And it's where you stop giving others control over your energy. Not everything you feel deserves a reaction. Some things are better left unspoken. Some battles aren't worth fighting. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've grown. It means you've learned that peace is more valuable than winning a moment. When you respond too quickly, your emotions are in the driver's seat. But when you pause, just for a breath, you invite logic, reflection, and clarity to join the conversation. And in that conversation, better choices are made. Think of the pause as emotional breathing room. Just like your body needs oxygen to move clearly, your mind needs space to think clearly. Without it, your emotions cloud your vision. But with it, you gain clarity, perspective, strength. That space between emotion and action is also where regret is avoided. Most of the words you wish you could take back were spoken too soon. Most of the damage done was a result of impatience. But space gives you the gift of foresight. The world will test your buttons. It will push, provoke, and pressure you. But your response is your power. When you don't give away that space, you don't give away your peace. And the more you protect that space, the more powerful you become. When someone offends you, pause. When a situation escalates, pause. When emotions run high, pause. That pause is your superpower. It separates the emotional from the intentional. And intention always wins in the long run. Creating space also builds trust, with yourself and with others. People begin to see you as steady, thoughtful, reliable, and more importantly, you begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't get tossed around by feelings. You become anchored. In relationships, that space can prevent unnecessary hurt. You stop before speaking out of frustration. You pause before acting out of fear. And in that stillness, you choose love over ego. That's how relationships last, not through perfection, but through pause. Even in private, the space matters. You might not say it out loud, but what you feed in your mind matters too. Pausing before mentally spiraling, before judging yourself, before repeating that old story. That's emotional intelligence in silence. Sometimes your reaction isn't even yours. It's a pattern, a habit from childhood, a defense from past trauma. But when you create space, you start seeing those patterns. You recognize them for what they are, and you choose differently. That's how healing begins. Train yourself to breathe first. That one breath slows everything down. It tells your nervous system we're safe. We don't have to rush. From that breath, space is born. And from that space, every wise decision begins. Creating space doesn't mean avoiding emotion. It means honoring it with dignity. You let the wave rise, you acknowledge it, and you ride it without crashing. That process builds emotional stamina, the kind that doesn't burn out when life gets loud. Every great leader, parent, teacher, or creator has mastered this space. It's what allows them to remain calm in crisis, to speak when others can't, to see what others miss. That space is not empty. It's full of awareness, full of strength. Practice in small moments, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when the email frustrates you, when plans fall apart. Those are the training grounds. The more you create space in the little moments, the more natural it becomes in the big ones. You don't need more time. You need more space between your feeling and your decision. That's where growth happens. That's where freedom lives. And that's how you stop being a slave to every mood and start becoming a master of your mindset. Emotions are natural, but actions are chosen. The space between the two is your greatest power. Protect it, practice it, build it like a muscle. Because in that sacred pause, you don't just find peace, you find the version of you that you've been trying to become. When you give yourself space, you stop acting from impulse and start leading from wisdom. Impulses are loud, emotional, and short-sighted. Wisdom is quiet, grounded, and long-range. One pause can be the difference between reaction and realization. Space allows your higher self to speak. That version of you that knows what really matters, your future, your peace, your growth, needs a quiet moment to rise. Without space, the noise of emotion drowns it out. But in stillness, your best self finds its voice. The stronger your emotions, the more space you need. When the emotion is loud, your silence must be louder, not to suppress what you feel, but to protect your next move. Because once action is taken, you can't take it back. Space guards your future from your past patterns. You've been taught to be quick, fast decisions, instant replies, immediate reactions. But emotional intelligence isn't about speed, it's about substance. Slow is not weak. Slow is strategic. It gives you time to align action with intention. Creating space makes you harder to manipulate. When people can't push your buttons, they can't control your choices. The more you pause, the more you realize who's pulling your strings, and the more you reclaim your power. There's a version of you that exists beyond the trigger, a version that's not offended, not reactive, not insecure. But you can only reach that version when you delay the reaction. In that gap, you see clearly, not from emotion, but from elevation. Pause doesn't mean passive. You're not avoiding, you're observing. You're not weak, you're watching. That short space between stimulus and response is where you recalibrate, where you shift the outcome before it unfolds. We often assume we must do something right now. But urgency is not always truth. It's often anxiety. Space reveals the difference. It separates real threats from emotional echoes. When you learn to pause, you make better calls under pressure. Some emotions feel permanent in the moment. But they're not. Anger fades. Sadness shifts. Frustration lifts. Don't build actions on temporary states. Space gives time for emotion to settle, so your choices come from who you are, not what you feel. When you respond from space, your words carry more weight. They're not just noise, they're intentional. People trust you more because you don't rush to speak. You're selective, measured, and grounded. That's rare, and rare gets respected. You teach others how to treat you by how you respond. If you react emotionally to every challenge, they'll use that. But if you create space and respond with strength, you raise the standard. That boundary becomes your reputation. Creating space is also about respect for yourself and others. You respect your energy enough not to waste it. You respect the moment enough to approach it with care. And that respect often de-escalates what would have turned into unnecessary drama. In parenting, leadership, or relationships, your calm is the thermostat. When you react, the room heats up. But when you create space, you regulate the whole environment. That's power, not through force, but through emotional presence. People who create space build emotional endurance. They don't get exhausted by every mood swing. They don't crash from every trigger. They've trained for it. Their pause becomes their shield, and their shield becomes their peace. You may not always have the right words, but you always have the option to pause. You always have the power to take one breath, 1 second, one heartbeat before responding. That single pause can stop a storm before it starts. Space doesn't disconnect you from feeling. It helps you honor it without becoming it. You can feel anger without being consumed by it. You can feel sadness without collapsing. The pause lets you hold emotion without letting it hold you. Your space inspires others. When people see you stay calm, wait, and choose wisely, it models what's possible. Your silence teaches. Your restraint influences. Your example becomes leadership without you having to say a word. Sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing, for now, not forever, just until your heart catches up with your mind. In that pause, you protect your integrity, you hold your standard, and your peace stays intact. People may try to rush you into reactions, but your pause breaks the cycle. It shows that you answer to your inner values, not external pressure. That's what makes your presence magnetic. You move from principle, not panic. In conflict, space invites clarity. Instead of reacting to defend your ego, you step back to understand the dynamic. You ask, what's really happening here? And that clarity gives you leverage, not to dominate, but to direct. Your space is your reset. When life gets chaotic, step back, breathe, reground. Your pause is not a step back, it's a step inward, and from that inward stillness you can come back stronger, clearer, and more in control. Every powerful person has one thing in common. They don't react to everything. They create space. They protect their emotional energy. They pause, reflect, and respond with purpose. And that's what makes them unshakable in a world full of noise. Chapter 11. Practice mental reframing every day. Your mind doesn't see facts, it sees interpretations. And the way you frame those interpretations becomes your reality. Mental reframing is the art of shifting your perspective, not to escape the truth, but to empower how you engage with it. It's not denial, it's direction. What happens to you is important, but what you tell yourself about what happens is even more powerful. Two people can go through the same challenge, but one crumbles while the other rises. Why? Because one sees defeat and the other sees development. Reframing doesn't change the event. It changes your relationship to it. You don't control the storm, but you can control whether you see it as punishment or preparation. This shift in meaning transforms emotional weight into wisdom. Every challenge carries two stories, the one that breaks you and the one that builds you. Mental reframing is the tool that helps you choose the second story, the one where you're not a victim, but a fighter, a learner, a builder of strength. Mental reframing is a daily discipline, not a one-time decision. It's the moment you catch your thoughts before they spiral. The second you replace, "Why is this happening to me?" with, "What is this teaching me?" That one sentence rebuilds your mindset. You don't have to lie to yourself. Reframing doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing a perspective that empowers instead of paralyzes. You can honor the pain, but still find the power within it. Small shifts change everything. Instead of, "I'm stuck," say, "I'm being prepared." Instead of, "This is the end," say, "This is a transition." These tiny adjustments in language create massive shifts in how you feel, think, and act. Reframing turns losses into lessons. Every failure becomes feedback. Every delay becomes divine timing. Every rejection becomes redirection. When your mind knows how to reframe, nothing is wasted, because everything becomes useful. Your mind will naturally drift toward fear and limitation. That's survival instinct. But mental reframing is your upgrade. It's how you train your brain to move toward growth, faith, and solutions, even in pressure, especially in pressure. The more you practice reframing, the quicker your recovery. Setbacks don't last as long. Disappointments don't drown you. You bounce back faster because your mind isn't stuck in defeat. It's trained to seek the next possibility. Reframing helps you take your power back. You stop blaming the world and start owning your mindset. You stop asking life to be easier and start asking yourself to be stronger. That shift changes everything because it puts you in the driver's seat. Even your self-talk begins to evolve. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you start saying, "I haven't figured it out yet." Instead of, "I'm a failure," you say, "I'm still learning." Those simple phrases rewire your self-image from limitation to potential. Mental reframing also helps you regulate your emotions. When you reinterpret an event in a more constructive way, your nervous system relaxes. You're not just changing thoughts, you're calming your body. That creates emotional resilience. You don't need to fake positivity, just find purpose in your pain. That's what reframing is about, not forcing a smile, but searching for meaning. And meaning gives your struggle value, even if the reward isn't immediate. When you practice reframing, the same world looks different. You begin to spot opportunities where others see obstacles. You find clarity where others find confusion. Your outer world doesn't change, but your inner world transforms, and that changes how you show up. Think of reframing as mental strength training. The more you lift thoughts into better shapes, the stronger your mind becomes. At first, it's hard, but over time, your reflex changes. You automatically reach for empowering interpretations. Reframing also improves how you treat others. When someone lashes out, instead of taking it personally, you reframe. They might be hurting. This small shift protects your peace and increases your empathy. That's maturity in action. When goals take longer than expected, reframing says, "Delay is not denial." When people doubt you, reframing says, "They don't see the vision, but I do." This mindset doesn't remove challenges. It just stops them from owning you. Reframing doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it pays off long term. Choosing a better perspective takes effort. It takes honesty, but it gives you clarity, control, and confidence when others are falling apart. Even on your hardest days, reframing keeps you afloat. It's the whisper that says, "You're not finished." The reminder that says, "This is shaping something inside you." That voice might be quiet, but it keeps you moving when everything else tells you to quit. Teach your mind to ask better questions. Instead of, "Why me?" ask, "What can I learn?" Instead of, "This is too much," ask, "Who am I becoming through this?" Questions direct your focus, and focus directs your future. The way you talk to yourself during hard moments will decide how long you stay stuck. Reframing turns moments of pain into pivots of power. You don't have to wait for life to get easier. You just have to train your mind to get stronger, one thought at a time. Mental reframing trains your brain to stop chasing what's broken and start focusing on what can be built. Instead of obsessing over what went wrong, you start asking, "What can I create now?" That shift is the beginning of all forward motion. You don't erase your past by reframing it, you reclaim it. You take moments that once caused shame or regret, and you extract lessons, meaning, and strength. It doesn't mean what happened was good. It means you refused to let it define you. Reframing isn't toxic positivity, it's powerful realism. It's saying, "This is hard." But hard doesn't mean hopeless. It's acknowledging struggle while still believing in a better direction. That mental balance creates endurance, not delusion. Your thoughts shape your feelings, and your feelings shape your behavior. So when you reframe your thoughts, you change your entire emotional atmosphere. A better story leads to better energy, and that energy leads to better action. You can't always control how life hits you, but you can control how you label the hit. Is this failure or feedback? Is this rejection or redirection? The words you use create the lens you live through. Reframe your words, reframe your world. When you reframe, you don't pretend pain doesn't exist. You give it a purpose. You say, "This pain will push me towards strength." You choose to believe that something in you is being stretched for your next season. That belief gives you the strength to hold on. Even during burnout, reframing matters. You might think, "I'm exhausted," but reframing says, "I've been giving my all. Now it's time to rest and recalibrate." That gentle shift turns guilt into self-care, and that mindset heals you faster. Every time you catch a negative thought and challenge it, you take back mental territory. You stop letting your mind sabotage your momentum. Instead, you build a habit of discipline, of looking for meaning before judgment, growth before blame. Reframing gives you hope without lying to you. It allows you to say, "This situation hurts, but I still believe something good can come from it." That belief doesn't make pain disappear, but it gives you a reason to stand through it. Some people get stuck in cycles because they never reframe the story. They repeat the same narrative of loss, betrayal, or failure. But a reframe says, "That wasn't the end. That was my initiation." It puts you in the position of author, not victim. You can reframe boredom into rest. You can reframe waiting into preparation. You can reframe heartbreak into redirection. Life rarely changes overnight. But when your lens changes, your direction always does. When you catch yourself spiraling in worst-case scenarios, pause. Ask, "What's another way to see this?" This small question stops emotional storms before they grow. Over time, it becomes instinct, and that instinct becomes a shield. Mental reframing isn't about ignoring reality. It's about redirecting how you experience it. Life may be tough, but you don't have to make it harder by telling yourself disempowering stories. You deserve thoughts that strengthen you, not weaken you. The more you practice reframing, the more you raise your emotional standard. You stop letting every setback ruin your day. You stop letting every slow season make you doubt your future. That standard becomes your emotional armor. When you reframe, you stop asking for an easier path and start building a stronger mindset. You realize the power isn't in controlling life. It's in controlling how you respond to life, and that's where unshakable peace begins. A reframed mind doesn't collapse easily. It has roots. It has clarity. It doesn't panic at the first sign of pressure. It sits, it listens, it finds a new angle, and it moves forward anyway. That kind of mind wins long before results show up. When your mind knows how to reframe failure, you stop fearing it. You stop running from discomfort, because you've trained yourself to find purpose inside pressure. And that's the difference between average and unstoppable. Reframing is mental fitness. It's mental freedom, it's mental maturity, it's how you grow up emotionally, not by avoiding feelings, but by facing them with better tools. And the best tool you'll ever have is the power to change your perspective. Even gratitude is a form of reframing. You take something ordinary and choose to see it as meaningful. You take something painful and decide to thank it for the lesson. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Gratitude reframes your life one moment at a time. When someone doubts you, you could take it as an attack, or a reminder that you believe in something they don't yet see. When something is delayed, you could feel cursed or protected. Reframing gives you options where others feel stuck. The more you master reframing, the less reactive you become. You create space between stimulus and story. And in that space, you choose better questions, better thoughts, better actions. That kind of control isn't luck, it's discipline. So reframe every day, reframe when it hurts, reframe when it's silent, reframe when it doesn't make sense. Because your future is not built by perfect days, it's built by better stories. And the story you tell yourself decides the life you build next. Chapter 12. Emotional control is the real superpower. Real power isn't loud, it's quiet. It's not explosive, it's measured. Emotional control is the superpower that separates those who react from those who rise. It's the strength to sit with your feelings without letting them decide your behavior. When you control your emotions, you control your energy. And when you control your energy, you control your outcome. The strongest people in the room aren't the ones who shout. They're the ones who choose when, how, and if they speak at all. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you know how to feel without falling apart. It means you give space to emotion, but you don't let it make your decisions. That's not repression. That's leadership over your own life. Most people are emotional puppets, pulled by fear, anger, envy, or insecurity. But the person with emotional control is untouchable. You can't manipulate them. You can't shake them. They choose their response, and that makes them unshakable. Anger is natural. So is fear. So is doubt. But when those emotions own your actions, they own your results. Emotional control is about feeling fully, then acting wisely. That space between the two is where transformation lives. You can't lead others until you learn to lead yourself. And emotional control is self-leadership in motion. It's the discipline to pause when triggered, to stay calm under pressure, and to speak from purpose, not panic. You're not weak for feeling deeply, but you're powerful when you can rise above the wave instead of drowning in it. Emotional control means you ride the storm without letting it pull you under. You feel it. You face it. Then you choose better. Emotional control gives you clarity. When you're reactive, your vision gets foggy. You misinterpret tone, exaggerate problems, and miss better solutions. But when you're calm, you see clearly. You listen better. You think sharper. You lead stronger. Your mood shouldn't run your life. Discipline does. And the highest form of discipline is emotional regulation, not letting a temporary emotion create a permanent decision. That kind of restraint builds lasting results. The people who win long-term aren't the ones with the best circumstances. They're the ones with the best control. They fall apart less, recover faster, stay grounded when others spiral. They've trained themselves not to be owned by emotion. Emotional control keeps you consistent. Even when you're tired, triggered, or doubted, you still show up, still train, still execute, because your actions are led by your principles, not your temporary feelings. You don't need to suppress your feelings, just learn to understand them before acting on them. Emotional control isn't cold, it's conscious. It's knowing what you feel, why you feel it, and choosing how to channel it into strength. People will try to provoke you. Life will throw curveballs. But your power lies in your non-reaction. When you don't flinch, don't chase, don't crumble, you build a reputation for strength. That kind of presence is impossible to fake. When you lose control of your emotions, you lose control of the moment. You say things you regret. You make decisions you can't undo. Emotional control protects your integrity, especially in the heat of pressure. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove your point in every argument. Sometimes emotional control is choosing silence over chaos, peace over pride. That's how you win without fighting battles that don't deserve your energy. When you control your emotions, people trust you more. In relationships, in leadership, in business, emotional steadiness builds safety, and safety builds influence. No one follows someone who's always unstable, but they'll follow the one who stays grounded. Every time you stay calm in a storm, you build inner armor. You prove to yourself that you're not fragile, that you're not your worst moment, that you can hold power without needing to explode. That quiet confidence makes you unstoppable. Mastering your emotions isn't about pretending. It's about owning. You own your anger by managing it. You own your fear by facing it. You own your sadness by letting it move through, not run over, your actions. Reactions are habits. Emotional control breaks the cycle. It interrupts the instant reply and replaces it with conscious pause. That pause might be small, a second, a breath, but inside it you find wisdom, strength, and dignity. When you learn to regulate your emotions, everything changes. Your conversations improve, your relationships deepen, your choices elevate. You become the kind of person others look to when everything feels unstable, because your energy is unshakable. Emotional control builds emotional intelligence. You no longer run from discomfort. You explore it. You no longer avoid feedback. You process it. You don't deflect. You don't deny. You examine. That self-awareness becomes your greatest ally. And in the end, emotional control gives you freedom. Freedom from being pulled by other people's actions. Freedom from your own triggers. Freedom to move with peace in a world that wants chaos. That's what makes it the ultimate superpower, because it gives you you. The world will test your patience daily. People will misunderstand you, disappoint you, disrespect you. But emotional control says, I don't lower my standards for temporary chaos. You choose maturity over reaction. You choose your future over a moment. Sometimes control means walking away when your ego wants to argue. You're not avoiding the conflict, you're choosing peace over pride. And that restraint doesn't make you weak, it makes you rare. Because anyone can explode, few can hold their fire. When you develop emotional control, you become unpredictable, in the best way. People can't push your buttons anymore. They can't count on your anger, your panic, or your breakdown. That makes you powerful because your peace becomes your protection. Life doesn't stop throwing curveballs, but emotional control means you stop swinging at everyone. You don't waste your energy on things that don't deserve your attention. You become more selective, more focused, more powerful. You were never meant to be ruled by emotions. You were meant to understand them, to use them as data, not dictators. Emotional control is the filter between the feeling and the final decision. And the stronger the filter, the smarter the move. Control isn't about holding in, it's about holding steady. You feel the wave, but you don't let it crash into your decisions. You feel the tension, but you don't let it explode into regret. You hold the line, and that line protects your future. There's strength in calm, not fake calm, not forced calm, but the calm that comes from knowing you're in charge of your inner world. That kind of calm can walk into any room, hear any insult, face any storm, and still speak with clarity. When you let emotions control your mouth, you damage things you care about. You say words you don't mean. You make choices you can't take back. But when you pause, when you own the moment, your silence becomes more powerful than any reaction. Think of emotional control like emotional armor. It doesn't block the pain. It helps you carry it with dignity. It doesn't mean you're numb. It means you're trained. And the more you train, the more unstoppable you become. The world honors loudness, but the most powerful people are quiet inside. Their stillness is louder than chaos. Their calm redirects tension. Their emotional control becomes a refuge, a standard, a signal that not everything deserves a reaction. If you want to lead, love, or last, emotional control isn't optional, it's foundational. Without it, your gifts are unstable, your talents are volatile, but with it, your influence becomes consistent, reliable, respected. Emotionally controlled people don't chase drama. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They let their presence speak. And when they do speak, people listen, not because they're loud, but because their words are rooted in control. When you master emotional control, life gets simpler. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop defending every move. You protect your mind like it's sacred, because it is. And that peace allows you to focus where it matters most. People may not remember what triggered you, but they will always remember how you responded. That response becomes your identity. Every moment is a chance to prove to yourself, I don't need to react. I know who I am. When you build emotional control, you're not just protecting your mood, you're protecting your mission. You don't let momentary emotions steal momentum from long-term goals. That discipline makes you consistent, even when motivation fades. Your peace doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're prepared. It means you've trained your nervous system not to respond to every poke, every test, every emotional spark. That preparation makes you stronger than any mood. Emotionally controlled people make better decisions. They take time, they think long, they weigh impact. Their emotions may rise, but they never rush. That slow power beats fast reaction every time. You can't stop storms, but you can anchor yourself. You can't control other people's moods, but you can master your own. And when you do, you move through life with unshakable confidence, because your energy no longer depends on anyone else. You build emotional control every time you choose patience over panic, every time you breathe instead of lash out, every time you listen instead of interrupt. These are small victories, but together they build emotional mastery. Don't wait for peace to find you. Create it with your control. Build it with your choices. Protect it with your discipline. And every day you choose control, you rise higher. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. The world is watching how you respond to pressure. So show them grace, show them grit, show them power without noise, strength without rage. That's emotional control, and that's what makes you a force no one can shake. The real power has always lived within you, not in louder reactions, but in quieter control. Emotional intelligence is not a trick, it's a trained state of mind. And now you've got the blueprint, so protect your peace. Choose your response, and lead your life from clarity, not chaos. Because when your emotions serve you, nothing can stop you.